Why are you here? I don't mean that in a deeper, broader, existential sense. I mean, why did you come here today to Forward? Maybe you came here to get out of work. Yeah? Maybe you came because you were made to come here. But maybe, just maybe, you came here to learn something. And that's very human of you. Humans gather information the way that squirrels gather nuts for the winter. It is essential for our survival. Sometimes we accept that information, but sometimes we reject it. Innovation is not always appreciated or rewarded in its lifetime. Woodrow Wilson said, "If you want to make enemies, try to change something." As an innovator, your reward may be painful death, ridicule and madness, or just being really, really wrong. As many of you may know, Galileo was forced to deny that the earth revolved around the sun. But you may not be aware of another promoter of the same theory, Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno was imprisoned for heresy in 1593 by the Catholic Church. Not only for saying that the earth revolved around the sun, but also that there are multiple universes. He was burned at the stake for defending his ideas. In 1846, a doctor, Ignaz Semmelweis, noticed different mortality rates between two sets of patients at the same maternity ward. Women tended to by nurses had a lower mortality rate than those tended to by medical students. Ignaz noticed that the medical students came directly from the dissecting room without washing up and then tended to their patients. He ordered the medical students to wash their hands before they examined the women, and the mortality rates dropped from 18% to 1%. Easy win, right? You know? Observable pattern, measurable outcome, low cost to implement, lives saved. Ignaz is a hero, right? Of course not. Ignaz is fired by his boss, who doesn't understand his work. He is ridiculed by his peers, and he dies in a madhouse. In the 19th and early 20th century, phrenology was all the rage. This is based on the assumption that there are only certain parts of your brain where certain faculties, such as veneration, firmness, or number perception, can live. And the more developed these faculties are in your brain, the more your brain, the skull, will change shape. I'm ahead. So he came to this conclusion. Franz Joseph Gall came to this conclusion by measuring the skulls of college professors and comparing them to them of those of degenerate or criminal classes. This idea was slow to die, in spite of the fact that in the 1820s there are job listings where you have to provide a note from a phrenologist. In spite of being widely discredited in the 1880s, it took 80 years for the British Phrenological Society to disband. So why do we fight innovation? Sometimes we fight it because we're afraid of what we're going to lose by it. The Catholic Church thought they might lose absolute power. Doctors were afraid they would lose their right to work in filthy clothes. Sometimes we fight it because it's just plain wrong, right? Like, why should the shape of your skull determine what kind of job you have? Unless, of course, your job is skull model. And sometimes we fight innovation because we just don't get it. Like, for instance, I don't trust the microwave, right? Like, how does that work? How come it can defrost bread but it can't make toast? Why does it refuse to heat things evenly? It murders pizza, okay? How can anything be good that does something that wrong to pizza? #do not ride the wave. In this next track, we're going to hear some speakers who are going to ask you to think differently how to solve problems. I'm going to ask you to not be like me. Do not fear the microwave, but open your hearts and minds to new ways of thinking. I'm not saying accept blindly whatever they say, but just open yourselves to it. You know, don't burn the heretic or ridicule the doctor, but please do, stop the phrenologist.